How much time did you have for yourself on Saturday and Sunday that was not working every minute? Tell me the truth.
A lot.
I know. So that's the punchline, right? Now imagine this, when I tell you this. You spent more downtime on not your career this weekend than I did in my entire 20s combined.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Right, so passive income is one of the most important tools in our journey towards financial freedom. Here are 6 passive income ideas in under 60 seconds. Let's go. Open a free account with an online broker and put some of your savings in the stock market index.
Is the only solution starting a YouTube channel or starting a business or monetizing your passion in fighting capitalism with capitalism? I think it is.
Redistribution Party. Redistribution Party. Redistribution Party. Redistribution Party. Redistribution Party. Redistribution Party. Redistribution Party.
Hello, buddies, and welcome to Mandatory Redistribution Party. My name is Sean Morley.
And I am Jack Lewis Evans.
Today, we're going to be talking about hustle culture and how people try to extract themselves from the rat race of labour commodification.
Work is a prison. Any economics professor will tell you there are but 2 routes of escape: adult mode and baby mode. Today, we compare the 2 and come to some, dare I say, obvious conclusions.
Only babies exist outside the framework of capitalism, and the curious case of Benjamin Button is a primary anti-capitalist text for the coming generation.
Of course! If you're not yet a baby and would like to use your adult bank account to support the pod, why not wire us something to patreon.com/mandatory redistribution party to unlock a cloister of bonus content.
And if you are an actual bona fide adult but have nary a florin to your name, then we also accept praise and recommendations on social media, though have to stress, adults only. I do not want babies recommended the podcast.
Sean, just before we get into this, do you think it's a good idea to be leaning into this adult baby joke so much? We're mostly talking about the social construction of adulthood in economic terms and the sort of surveillance culture brought about by the idea of hustling. Should we just be leaning into the adult baby thing? It's a kink, but it's also like a kink subculture with a strong emphasis on like shitting.
Well, I just thought it'd be like a funny theme for the intro read in. I don't know if people will be thinking about diaper play. I think it's just babies are funny, you know.
Do we want that in people's? Do we want people thinking about like a 48-year-old builder called Paul in a nappy?
I don't know if they will do that. I don't know.
Is that?
I don't know.
Oh, Sean. Oh, Sean. Shh. It's okay, Sean Morley. It's just a podcast. Little Sean Morley. It's just a pod. Shh.
Happy again.
Oh, fucking hell. What the fuck are we doing? Here's a word I dislike.
Okay.
Adulting.
Oh, yeah, okay. Because adulting... Okay, am I going to respond with my take straight off, right?
Yeah, drop a take, Sean.
Yeah, shooting from the hip here. Is that adulting disguises the huge amount of responsibilities laid onto an individual, but it frames it completely and implicitly, very, very disguisedly, as an individual failing, as though these millennials, which we are, millennials, have failed to self-actualize in the same way that the previous generation did, because we can't look after a household and do two jobs as an individual.
So fail to self-actualize. Obviously, it's very infantilizing to use the term adulting. But the interesting thing about it is I think that the people who use it are not necessarily boomers patronizing millennials. It tends to be like a certain very specific kind of like middle class millennial writing a BuzzFeed article. But so we all know the idiom of like you become more conservative as you age.
Mm-hmm.
If you dig down and think, okay, what is growing up? What is becoming an adult? The key symbols of adulthood are the symbols of capitalism and being a good cog in the capitalist machine. Home ownership, get that mortgage, get on the housing ladder, learn to drive, have your own separate car. These are also things that make your parents gleeful if you achieve them. Make sure your credit rating is good. Start investing, sort out a pension. Do a weekly shop. Like the things that are adulthood are things that capitalism needs you to do to keep ticking over. Millennials are denied these symbols of adulthood, not because of any individual choice, but because of basically economics. They can't afford to be an adult by these metrics. Mm-hmm. The clear, most common thing where people would point to and be like, this is adulthood, is having a child yourself. Mm-hmm, which is also a thing that millennials increasingly put off. Why? Not necessarily because of sometimes because of individual choice. We spoke about this on the podcast before, but to an extent because it is hard to do financially.
Pete, when I think of adulting, I think about people who struggle. They do their job, right? Yeah. And their job, or jobs increasingly, always takes precedence. And so all the small things that come with looking after yourself and looking after the household, they are the first to be jettisoned. So you're like, everyone feels imposter syndrome because they're like doing this job and everything goes into like, I cannot let the job suffer because that's my income, that's my life, that's actually part of my identity. Yeah. But I can't find time to mow the lawn, and the food I eat's junk, and I need to hoover this carpet, but I'm so tired all the time that I don't do it, and therefore I'm not an adult because in my head I can imagine like 1950s nuclear families where every speck of dust has been vaporized. Right, so we got the economic changes which have made it harder to like live and work just enough that you can continue to like keep a hold of your environment and self. But the other really important concept is wifes, right? I think a key component of this whole thing is wifes. Having a wife or being a wife is a key component of adulthood. I was introduced to this thing mostly through academia. My partner's an academic. And, publish or perish. Everyone needs to be putting out papers, writing, researching. And there's this question of like, how are these men, especially these older men, working at such a huge rate? It's because they're not doing any of that other stuff because they have a wife. Do you know what I mean? The wife's also like not just the household. She's doing like administrative secretarial proofreading work for free.
She's doing the adulting.
She's doing the adulting, and then he can be an adult while living like a child. Right? That's the boomer nuclear family. You get to be an adult while actually being an adult baby. The adult baby takeover is back on. And so what's happened here is that women have entered the workforce. Just want to say in big parenthetical capitals, that's a good thing, right?
Thumbs up.
Just want to make that super clear. But of course, that means that the amount of labour being put into the economy from the population has doubled. Yeah. And yet the amount of money coming back out doesn't actually now that that's become the norm, it wouldn't really allow for someone to bundle off into a nuclear family where only one of the couple does the work, because that's no longer even possible. So this conservative family ideal that we're supposed to come back to, that is like regarded as the perfect Protestant, Christian, white middle-class way of living, is economically impossible as well.
It only existed for a very small group of people for, a couple of decades? But it's the metric everyone's measured against.
And it means that everyone, an entire generation of people, have an imposter syndrome that they feel, even though it is felt by an entire generation of people, right? It is so ubiquitous. Everyone conforms to the same standard. No one really is doing adulting. Everyone talks about an inability to do adulting, as though there is something that's, who is achieving it then? And how can we all be imposters if no one's doing it? Economics will put you in a position where you are treated like a child well into your 30s, because it is still expected that you would be like in some higher rung of your life. because even though it's been like a good decade since the 2008 crash, there's just been no accounting for the fact that like the normal systems by where people accrue certain amounts of wealth at certain points in their life is completely not functioning. You've had a decade to think about this. And so you've got people like myself who I live in, like, I look for cheap rents in a big city, and I've forever been locked into like student accommodation or student adjacent accommodation with landlords that only know how to talk to you like you are 19 years old. Yeah. They only know how to talk to you like you're a child, and therefore they treat you with this kind of maternalism, even though, like, you know, with some of them, I'm closer to your age than you are to the people that you are normally renting to. Or even when you're working in an industry, but you're still like going for starter jobs and starter pay, even though you're in your 30s, you've actually technically been in this industry your entire adult life.
Can I just briefly give you a piece of information that's going to chill you to your core?
I'd love to be spooked. Thank you.
I have a friend who has a landlord that is not only younger than him, but visited the house to do an inspection by skateboard.
Wow! Teen landlord.
not teen, but like kind of like a
baby landlord,
like a emo, you know, like skateboard, big circle earring that's in the bottom of your ear. Do you remember, like a bit new metal? Yeah,
and they're really out of fashion now.
Yeah.
Slightly out of fashion, mid-20s.
Not in North Wales, mate.
Teen.
New metal lives on in North Wales.
Yeah, new metal never dies.
Yeah,
it just goes to real.
Mate, skateboarder landlord, grinding around the kitchen counters. Yeah. I don't want to fog the vibe, but rent is due.
I'm leaving my skateboard here and I'm putting it on the inventory so you can't get rid of it. I've also seen TikToks. You know how like landlords have been like telling on themselves in TikTok, which is
passive income.
But TikToks of tenants finding out that their landlord also just lives with them and they just thought they were friends. Have you ever seen our landlord? Oh yeah, that's me. Do you want a smoothie? Yeah, have you ever noticed that I don't have a job? You're my job.
So there's the annoying BuzzFeed version of like adulting, and the other strain of the virus I've seen is, let's charitably call these people social democrats. Mm-hmm. Doing a different kind of infantilizing where they talk about socialism or communism or anarchism all being symptoms of a kind of teenage distaste of getting off your arse and doing anything, as if you have got like just a personal distaste for something and then built an ideology on top of it. Because I'm saying charitable to call them social democrats, because what they're doing is they're still equating adult responsibilities with the behavior expected of an adult under capitalism. So you can't really decouple those things, and it's like, well, actually the things you're expected to do under capitalism, they are objectively adult responsibilities, and you're still going to need to do them. So actually, spoilers, we're not. Don't start dreaming of greater leisure time.
If the greatest argument against like wealth redistribution or an economy where people can like work and afford to pay their rent is that everyone would be a big baby,
sign me
then
up.
Bring it on. Yeah. This guy's ready for the soft play area.
Yeah, give me my rattle.
Yeah. That's an adult baby takeover that I can get on board with. I have to say, I keep referencing it, but the Neville Southall's starting and then being forced by social pressure to abandon. Yeah. Just a little parenthetical here. Neville Southall, Everton goalkeeper, became very socially conscious after like the new younger Twitter left met him halfway after he started posting anti-Thatcher jokes, and suddenly this like he's just a stay-at-home old guy now. He was like, what does trans mean? What's UBI? And people are like, we'll tell you all of these things. We've never had someone of your generation just ask questions and want to know the answer. So here you go. But his mind, sadly, it's a sad story, his mind got too open, right? His mind went too open. And he had someone who looked after his account and let people to do temporary takeovers. I mean, this is a very good practice, right? He's got a platform and he's letting people with individual issues come and educate people. The Neville Southall account was almost like the tents and sit-ins and teach-ins around like Occupy Wall Street, right? But it was just a bit too open-minded, and that's what led to him going. And then next week, we will be joined by someone who works in the adult baby sex work industry to discuss how being an adult baby is it should be a protected characteristic, and there is bigotry done against adult babies. And everyone had to say, I don't think so. And he got really angry. It really was a turning point for a wonderful era.
Bless Big Nev.
But now here we are, years later, advocating for an entire economic system run by fully grown babies. So it just goes to show, as ever, politics is downstream of culture.
So talking about culture and how important it is to shaping behaviour, I want to get into the galaxy brain idea of surveillance and how we kind of surveil each other, how we all feel pressure from above, from capital, but also from each other through partly social media systems owned by capital, and how that conditions what we do. You know how people get scared of like their phone is listening to them? It's not like a hypothetical conspiracy theory that your phone is a surveillance device. Mm-hmm. It is a surveillance device. Mm-hmm. Like that's every time you click accept cookies, every profile you have on social media that isn't private is surveillance. And to an extent, I mean, I don't think browsing the web, people are worried about cookies and that necessarily shapes what websites they go to. But I think people are conscious of a persona on social media output that has to some extent be maintained so as to not alienate either but potential fan base of whatever things they're trying to create that they hope these people will like, or B, employers or potential employers. You know, like if you go for a job now, they're going to rake through your social media, which is normally, you know, like reason one why people go locked on Twitter is that they've said something stupid and they're getting owned. And then reason two is they're looking for a job.
Yeah. I don't even know what I've said, but I know that me, with what I tend to say, is incompatible with me receiving gainful employment in this country.
Which then that functions as surveillance, right? Because your life is going to be, as you put it out to the world on Twitter or on Instagram or whatever, is shaped by like this audience. Isn't directly the state, but in many ways you could argue that it's capitalism.
Everyone knows you're supposed to like not be yourself in a job interview. And at worst, just lie. You know, just lie. What are your interests? Well, I'm not really going to tell you any of my real
working
interests.
Hard.
Yeah, I love getting a big sweat together, moving some of your packages in your warehouse. And then they're going to look through your social media and they're going to realize, oh, you're a normal person who says normal, dumb things. And that, sadly, is disqualifying. But imagine someone who was the ideal candidate for like a normal boring job that like has a passion for forklift driving or like loves
Mate,
organizing spreadsheets.
Have you ever driven a forklift?
I haven't driven a forklift.
Forklift driving rules. It is mad. The wheels at the back turn. It's the back.
I've played enough Shenmue to know. I've got to the
You've driven a forklift. Then that's it. That's
and I've raced one. If you get there early enough. Imagine someone who did fit the criteria of what someone was looking for, given that in these days what you're judged on is not just your aptitude and skill set, it's your personality, it's your team drivenness.
Product you.
That kind of person in a real normal social situation would come across as either a robot or a psychopath.
Yes.
That kind of person would come off as you would feel that something was deeply evil around you. Do you know the way that like if you're like cats hate the undead and stuff?
Your blood would whisper to you that you are in danger.
Yeah, it'd be a perfectly hot day. They say hello and your teeth start chattering. Something is wrong. They're looking for like blank, psychopathically empty people.
Yes.
And if you give any indication that you have a beating heart filled with passions, you're gone. You cannot organize my spreadsheet.
People talk about like cancel culture or whatever. It's like, do you think people who are very clearly on their social media, radical communists or effective union organizers or whatever, do you think that helps them when applying for jobs?
Yeah.
You would never find out. There won't be any empirical thing that shows that that's happened on any record anywhere, but it will just definitely be happening. And then you're not going to get a fucking Guardian and Telegraph article to say you were cancelled from getting this job.
That's really interesting, right? Because the people who are powerless, are forced to, in quote marks, cancel people publicly.
Yes.
Where like op-eds are allowed to get angry about it and pull up the tweets, whereas powerful people can just cancel people from inside their office and leave no record behind that they have directly impacted someone's income based on something they've said or done or are. Yeah. And also, increasingly, you just like can't be off it. Being off it is almost suspicious in itself. In somewhere, you need to be putting your blandest foot forward. It's almost like having a credit rating. If you don't borrow, you don't have a credit rating. So you have to be putting up the absolute blandest shit you can somewhere to build up a public record that you are in fact a normal human and not in fact the eccentric little weirdo that you actually are.
I've said this before, but the way, so brands advertise their product, right? And the product you are selling to a company is your labor power, your ability to work for them. Your advert historically is your CV. But now it's not just that, is it? It is your brand, your fucking persona or whatever. So your CV is one part of it. That's one of the adverts that the employer is going to look at and decide if they want to rent your services. But they're also going to look at all this other stuff as well. So to an extent, that intrudes on you to varying degrees, but that's one of the things that I think makes people feel increasingly burnt out, is this like almost always being at work, because there's just that is just in the background of like, even things you do to perhaps enjoy yourself are part of the commodification of yourself.
Everything digital can no longer be completely disassociated from work, and only small analog experiences, such as touching some Artex or, smelling of pistachio, only that is definitely not work. I touched some great Artex today and I popped that up on LinkedIn. The Artex touching is retroactively me on the clock.
This is. Don't you think it's interesting that this 1960s countercultural revolution was very, very individualist, and that's one of the reasons that the same people, same generation that were behind the counterculture elected Thatcher and Reagan, which is, obviously generational analysis is very limited, but I think there's still a grain of truth in that kind of happened. Sort of 60s stuff was like, I hate the man, I'm not going to conform, I'm going to be this other thing, I'm going to express myself as an individual differently. And now it's like, that is what the man wants. Like the man wants you, by which I just mean that, the kind of the various systems of kind of patriarchal capitalism, whatever. They want you to express your individualism on various platforms so they can nail down exactly who you are as a potential worker and exactly who you are as a consumer of goods, so that you can be explicitly and directly targeted the most effective advertising to make you the most profit milkable punter to sell things to you and to make sure they're employing the exact right person. So the individual expression, which was seen as kind of countercultural and revolutionary in the late 1960s, is now so assimilated into capital that the radical thing you could do would be to delete all your social media and make sure that when you touch a bit of
Artex.
So when you touch a bit of Artex,
keep it secret. Don't even release this episode. I think we're oversaturated with the ability to express ourselves. Previously, those scary depictions of like Soviet conformity, they're seeming more and more appealing. I'd love to just wear a jumpsuit. I'd love to live in like an identical, what they called like Khrushchevkias. Do you know those? Just an identical grey utilitarian block of flats. We're all in the same, all eating the same gruel. Great, no profile pictures.
But also, it's job done. Like if you just obtain your culture from, you're like, oh yeah, that's what it is. We're all a jumpsuit guy. It's less work. I'm not saying it's fucking. I'm not advocating it, but I'm just pointing out it's interesting, isn't it? That like it is a lot of, it is a lot of pressure people feel to appear a certain way.
Well, I remember in my 20s, I've just finished university. I'm going to try and get a job. I don't know what kind of job. I've got a philosophy degree, so I don't really know what I'm doing. But before that, I looked weird, I had a tendency to like paint my nails. I was in university. I had really long hair. I wore stupid clothes. Then I wanted to be like... We
did a lot of similar things at university.
Right. But then also as well, doing comedy, there was an aspect where I didn't want to be prejudged.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be able to come up and people not really know what I'm going to be about. So if I did something really weird, it's kind of more impactful.
Yes.
And so I had in my head, like, just be a chameleonic, generic guy. You're in this privileged position where you could fade into a crowd.
Yes.
Try and get something that can do that. And I remember that being a lot harder than I thought it would be, because what you need to do to blend into a crowd is changing constantly. Yeah. And I learned there is a whole group of men who really don't give a shit about how they appear, but just don't want to stand out.
Yeah.
That are constantly like moving to get into this goalpost that the fashion industry is always shifting while telling them you're expressing yourself, and they're going, no, I'm working as hard as I can to
be generic.
Opposite. Yeah, I want to be just a generic guy, and you're saying I'm expressing myself and keep changing what I got to do. Just let me wear a fucking flannel shirt.
I bought 5 glasses frames in 5 years.
Yeah, I just want the normal thick black glasses, flannel shirt, jeans. Let me stick with that. No, sorry.
Let me be my 2007 self forever.
Can't do it. You have to express yourself by copying this new thing we've brought out. For a while, I performed in pajamas, and I felt that was quite neutral, although a little wacky. But nice pajamas, you know?
Yeah.
I've become a big connoisseur of the nice pajama. What do you sleep in? It's going to be something awful and crass, isn't it? It's going to be just balls out.
You know me so well. No. That or boxers.
I knew it. It was just obvious from knowing you. Me, I wear nice PJs.
You're a fancy lad.
Well, you can get straight out of bed in the nice PJs. You can get straight out of bed and you can answer the door.
I'm not answering the door in the morning. Fuck that.
Not answering the door.
I'll come back if it's important.
No, they don't. If they can't get this parcel to you now, they're going to hoy it into the Budlier.
Oh, the abyss. Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. I'll take the hit.
Take the hit of being sitting in your pants or accidentally falling down the stairs or trying to put a shirt on.
I'll take the hit of not getting up.
Oh yeah, you are a beast. Have you heard of I Don't Dream of Labour?
I'm an ignorant pig in this matter. I'm a swine staring into the abyss, glassy-eyed.
I think no. You could be a wonderful pony in a verdant meadow, and I'm trying to lure you into the big city to show you an interesting kind of bin. Let's not race to the bottom about who's in the muck and who's pure.
I'm okay. I'm a half pig, half pony. Jump on and take me to your bin.
Yeah, you're a kind of ill but well-meaning quadruped that's only known AstroTurf.
Yeah.
And I'm taking you to a different kind of enclosure. Yeah, you've been eating the AstroTurf and you've got brain damage.
You think I'm a unicorn, but that's just a huge piece of green plastic jabbing out of my pig brain.
Yeah, you haven't had any for a few years, but every time you do a particularly deep breath, a few shards come out like green glitter. So, I don't dream of Labour. Too difficult to go back in after that.
Yeah, no, just go in.
So there's this sphere of influencers or like content creators across different, the platforms people make stuff on. And there is this subgenre called like alternative self-help. That is, your main self-help is like nonsense Americans who talk like they're blasting through your soul in a super church, telling you if you really clutch at your brow, you could become a millionaire. Whereas these are people who are a bit more switched on. Some of them can be like, do you know that kind of liberalized capitalism skepticism, which is like, oh, it's bad because capitalism. Anyway, here's how to start your own business and rip off your employees. But it's like, you've acknowledged the problem. And that, in your head, is as good as doing anything useful.
Yes.
But there's been this trend called I Don't Dream of Labour, which is, at its very core, at the very acorn in the middle of its beating heart, is sort of interesting, which is, these are, a lot of them are influencers, and a lot of them are realizing and communicating the idea, I neither have nor want a dream job, because a dream job is still a job. And I don't dream of selling my labour.
Right.
That's interesting. That is and then from that has splintered off into a million people thinking their thoughts. And I'll tell you where it's tended to go and where it sadly has not tended to go. It's not really a story with a happy ending, because I think a lot of these people have gone, you know, when people like are almost there, do you know when they're almost there, but they don't quite make the last and most radical step. So they go, okay, work is bad because I'm alienated from what I make. And also I'm like a slave to capital. I still need to grind parts of myself to dust so that I can keep my mortal form alive. So how do we solve that? Do we recognize that this is a structure that doesn't work for anyone and change it? That's not what they do. They go bonkers on, I'll just get loads of passive income and then I won't need a job.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Yes. I've seen this shit. You know, you talked about the kind of mainstream hustle people. The big guys, like people like Gary Vee, the kind of totally nuts American hustle guys who are preachers of the ideology of modern capitalism, right? In that they probably believe what they're saying, much like a lot of the preachers of organized religion in like medieval Europe did. They probably do actually believe what they're saying, but also what they're saying is a very important means of control. What hustle culture says is that you should be like working all the time, like, I don't know, 26 hours a day. And you should feel guilty anytime you're not working because that's like wasted time. And what it does is it explains why you're poor. You're poor because you don't work hard enough, and explains why the rich are rich, which apparently is that they've just worked way harder than you. Which
They've
actually is the
worked
opposite.
a billion times harder than you.
Yeah. Which is the opposite of
And
fucking
boy,
reality.
their arms tired.
Jeff Bezos needs to lie down. But the reality of it, of course, is the opposite, in that capitalism thrives off the labour of others and depends upon the exploitation of the labour of others. And your work, it's an ideology that makes you guilty for any relaxation, because by necessity, it needs you to work, and it needs you to work yourself to the bone in order to generate profit, which is what capitalism as a system. That is what the alternative self-help people are trying to become. They're kind of trying to become little capitalists. They're trying to become, you know, if you can live on passive income, it's not fucking passive income, is it?
Someone's doing something active somewhere.
Exactly. If it's rent, then that person who lives in that property is doing the work, and then you're parasiting off them. You're extracting value from their work. If it's investing in the stock market as a whole, you're creaming off the work, the labour, which is very fucking active, of millions of people.
It's interesting because it's an evolution of a very similar idea, because you've got your like late 20th century self-help, which is like, look around you, you're living in the dirt, you got to run harder, you got to go faster. Yeah. And somewhere along the line, you know, this new evolution is going, well, that promise is a lie, right? Work sucks. And so hustle culture, you know, the hustlers, and I guess even to like some degree, like people who go into like petty criminality, these are all people who are like, work fucking sucks and it can't be made to be good.
And it
so
does
let's
suck.
do something else. Work does suck
because your work, you know, even if you momentarily draw some joy or pleasure in the actual tasks you're doing, the value you create goes to them. So that's bad. And also, you don't have any democratic power. You're alienated both in terms of the total lack of control you have over the labour you do, other than choosing who exploits you, and that exploitation of the value. So you're alienated in both those ways. That is shit, isn't it? So going, you know, there's a way to escape this is a pretty rational. That's why people want to become self-employed. Although self-employed now means the fucking gig economy.
It's not you're your own boss. It's almost everyone is your boss now. Everyone you talk to is your boss.
Yeah. Everyone you talk to is your boss. You got a million bosses, including yourself.
Yeah, I'm one of them, and I'm the angriest.
You're the angriest and most tired.
Yeah, I can't hide from this one.
The worst thing about self-employment, the boss-worker relationship, which is a class conflict, is put inside yourself, which is one of the reasons that self-employed people struggle with mental health issues more. Oh, shall I phone in? Shall I pull a sickie?
I know you're just resting so that you can be well rather than hitting the minimum possible amount of health in order to do more work. It goes both ways, right? If you end up with mental health problems or have just neurodevelopmental issues, you don't fit very well in traditional workplace. But then, of course, you develop worse problems because you've had to put the worker-employer conflict as two personas, two wolves inside of you, endlessly fighting. Inside the ultimate grifter, the hustler, they must have 9 wolves inside them, and they become unknowable Rubik's Cube people. Where, do you know how on social media, we said earlier, you have to like put your best foot forward? There's no concept of like real talk, of like, can we just talk, like, can we talk normally now? Like, you're not at a show, you're not doing anything. I've just met you in like a completely unassuming. There is no inner self. They're like a Rubik's Cube in that the Rubik's Cube has no center cube. There's just different patterns that are always interlocking.
Each cube is a wolf.
Each cube is a wolf fighting for domination.
I'm not even touching this Rubik's Cube.
Rubik's Cube from the makers of Beyblade. Take out the other cubes. There's some people that are so into this kind of hustle culture. Hustle culture plays two things at once, right? We've met a lot of hustlers.
Oh, fucking hell. The comedy circuit's chock full.
And so often it's like, yeah, I'm like top of the world right now. I'm just getting money left, right, and centre. And I go, oh, well, I was going to offer him some work, but he doesn't need it, right? Because he's doing fine. He might even be out of my price range. But obviously, if they're lying, the very thing you've done to get work has lost you work here, because you're placing yourself outside of actually where you are in your career. Yeah. And you're not going to get the thing where you want to be, but you should at least be getting work at the place where you realistically are.
Oh, fucking hell.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? You're sort of alienated your peers. You're pretending you're doing these things that don't exist. And it obviously isn't going to help you. I had someone tell me, look, my worst thing that I associate with hustle culture, someone was going, yeah, so I'm just like taking the career really seriously now. And, you know, I've decided I'm only going to have a conversation if it's someone who I think I can get a gig from or someone that's going to help my career. And then he went, so, by the way, can I have a gig? And I'm like, no, you've just told me that we're not friends and you're not interested in talking to me. You've just told me you're only interested in talking to anyone if they're going to pay you. And I find that really offensive that you don't like talking to me for any other reason, so I'm not going to work. Like, it's so stupid. I'll tell you after the recording who that was.
Oh, yeah, full on, yeah.
And of course, if you're listening, I still remember. I think that happened in like 2017. I still remember that. That was the most socially inept move I've ever come across. I think the comedy circuit, especially the lower rungs of the comedy circuit where the desperation's turned up to absolute fever pitch.
Well, this is why people get an agent, right? Because it outsources. I can totally see the appeal. What it does is it outsources the horrors of self-promotion to someone else.
Self-promotion feels vile. And that's why doing a self-promotion swap is the most expedient thing you can do, especially at a live festival. Yeah. I will advertise your show and you advertise my show. Yes. No one's banging a drum with their own name written on it, so no one feels like they've sold their soul. Ugh. In comedy is hyper individualistic, but within that, you will find so much cooperation. People are helping each other endlessly. The amount of help we all received when we were completely new. Older acts would go, not seeing you around. Is this your first show? Here's what you want to do. And sometimes they're a bit like an uncle kicking the wheels of a tire and giving you loads of received wisdom that's not actually going to help you. But
you're doing the gigs, lad.
You're doing the gigs. Here's the next gig you want to do. Paddy's Mirth Shed.
He'll pay you by check. The check will have the number 0 on it.
You know, even if some of it's not helpful, there's so much cooperation within what is a hyper individualistic rat race of industry. But these hustlers, they cannot, right? They cannot help because they've internalized the competitive nature of this industry so much. They are just out to grab and get anything they can. And there's no like getting through to them. And they lose friends constantly. They like spiral out.
Unless they're effective.
It's really grim.
I think there's probably people who know what they're doing and are very cynically doing it and are doing it scarily effectively. You can't underestimate those people. What we're talking about is the people who are trying to be hustle people who fucking suck at it. Those people are funny. The former are kind of scary.
Yeah, because of course the true hustlers are always advertising themselves as like, I know it's a bit cringe, but my agents asked me to push this thing, and, have to do this, and it's like, yeah, I get that. You know, you must be under a lot of pressure. Yeah, they're the true ones.
They're the masters. They're galaxy brain.
Undetectable. Yeah, dark matter.
Every wolf is going in the same direction.
All the wolves agree. Watch out. That's like when someone unlocks, you know, like, we only use 10% of our brain, but sometimes all the wolves agree. Just going back to the I don't dream of Labour alternative self-help people.
Yeah.
But they've decided work's bad and they want to escape. And, you know, they've moved away from the promise that they need to do like individual betterment to get there. And they've gone, I just need to hack it. And the problem is that the paradigm we live in is like every time you try to hack work by just not doing work in the standard traditional way, work gets harder for everyone else.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, work, but every time you don't do it normally, it gets faster. Because obviously once you become someone else that's just extracting, then everyone else just has to work harder because now there are more people trying to extract from you.
Yeah, yeah.
And I suppose also, you know, if same way if you just go into actual criminality, you have just taken from people who now need to work harder to make up for the shortcomings.
Here's a fucked element of the hustle culture thing of like it's work in itself is exhausting, right? Do you know what's even more exhausting? The performance of like loving work, which like certainly I know from my own experience in teaching that is like. It's a fucking epidemic of people talking about, you know, trying to be the earliest in, the latest to leave. It comes back to, you know the idea of like, do what you love. Do what you love. That has two toxic, horrific outcomes. Horrific outcome one is the commodification of your hobby. Yeah. So
I no longer love the thing.
Yeah. So you try to transform the thing you enjoy for leisure into a side hustle. I mean, the fucking concept of a side hustle is basically redundant now because people basically are just doing like side hustle.
There's no primary hustle.
Yeah. There's no primary hustle. It's not like supplementing. It's necessary, right? That's kind of fucked in and of itself. But the second thing is that like you perform loving your job because you're supposed to do what you love, and surely everyone in industry is only in it because they love it rather than they just need money. Because we live under capitalism, and the only way you can get the food from the shop is by giving the people money. Giving the machine money, right? So you have to perform like loving the job. And then that expresses itself in its, obviously there's the whole like interview stages of that's fucked. But there's also, I think, real toxic work cultures come out of that, of like a kind of the emotional labor of being a workaholic. Even if, so there's like actually being a workaholic, which a lot, but I think is a problem in and of itself. And then there's people pressured by their peers to either also be a workaholic or appear to be a workaholic. So it becomes this like self-surveillance thing of like hustle culture doesn't just affect yourself, because it becomes a means of control on you to make you feel guilty when you are relaxing because you could be working. You could be working on yourself as a commodity. You could be watching YouTube tutorials to get better at something. You could be doing research to understand something better because you always need to be improving yourself because you are a commodity for capital, right? There's that. But then there's also like the surveillance of each other. The surveillance isn't like just your boss coming and looking over you. It's like the expectations.
Everyone around you.
It's everyone around you. It's your social media feed. It's your work colleagues that are on the same level as you. And hustle culture, I think, amplifies and encourages behaviors that almost make people surveil themselves and surveil each other. Your boss now in 2021 is probably less likely to have some awkward conversation with you where they imply that you're lazy or not working hard enough because your colleagues have guilted you into that situation.
Yeah. And isn't it mad that like we're in this like horizontal peer surveillance culture? And it's like mostly reified and organized in kind of pointless industries like marketing Snickers bars to the 60s. And it's not used to be like tell people to stop littering or stop fly tipping or just get people to stop doing things that are very socially damaging, get people to stop wearing their masks on their chin. It's entirely used to make sure people are looking at their computer screen smiling while doing nothing. That's where the energy's going.
Well, and then if you look at the hustle culture people specifically, the work they encourage people to do is become a fucking landlord, invest, so become a landlord with more steps, or drop shipping on Amazon, which is just like,
or crypto,
or do the same thing that the social media hustle people are doing anyway, which is peddle bullshit to a large following. And the algorithm pushes that, the algorithm wants to push, the YouTube algorithm wants to push shit that like teaches people how to become successful YouTubers. It doesn't want to push, how to join a fucking union and organize a union. That pushes you towards commodifying everything you do, right?
So we've been tracking a timeline of different people feeling disillusioned with the promises connected to work and just the experience of work, and more incrementally radical ideas about how much people are making a complete and total rejection of work from people who are going, well, fuck it, I'll just become like, I think a lot of these I Don't Dream of Labour people like, fuck it, I hate working so much, I will just cross the line and become a capitalist because working drains the soul. Why should I do that to myself? And you've got
spoiler. Being a capitalist also drains your soul.
I think you could go to hell but have a wonderful material life beforehand.
Great tomb, pimped out tomb.
Yeah. I would love a great tomb.
I want to be buried in a PS5. Generationally, we have far less social mobility, but the culture now is so much like anyone could be a millionaire, when that is like less likely than fucking ever.
Yeah. But that's why people want this opt out, right? Because the promises are broken. The social contract is completely null and void. I've been wrestling with like, when people say under UBI, people would naturally work because people are naturally inclined towards caring for each other and people are naturally inclined towards productivity. But I've really just been wrestling with, can we actually not just advocate for a system where it's okay just not to do anything at all?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not anything. Not even look after myself. And just sit at home and die. Can that not be allowed? And I'm not depressed.
Yeah, why not?
I'm probably the happiest I've been in my life.
I'm not depressed. Honest.
I'm not.
Don't report this.
I'm so happy. I would be. The moment, and I can't explain it, but the moment I'm not forced to like go and beg for coin to live, I would relax every muscle in my body. My eyes would loll back into my skull. I'd smile and I'd be catatonically like that until the sheer lack of nutrient intake just stopped my heart. That's how I want to go.
Then they put you in the PS5. They put you in the tomb.
I'd become the UI for a PS5. Welcome to PlayStation. Don't work.
Mandatory Redistribution Party was created and produced by Sean Morley and Jack Lewis Evans. Our title theme was created by Ella Jean. The bleak clips at the start of this episode feature, in order, Gary V, Ali Abdal and Lynette Adkins. Because we are S-tier hustlers monetising our passion, please do consider supporting our work at patreon.com/mandatory redistribution party or by sharing this episode on social media in order to condition the behaviour of your peers. Farewell, friend. Till next time.